Blank, gentlemen. We are now into June, and free agent quarterback Cam Newton still doesn't have a team to call home. Sources are now saying with the market cool, Cam may just wait to sign with a team. What's the rush? Also, phones not ringing. Nick, Cam's week 1 status is blank.
Right now, I think his week 1 status is doubtful because I think Cam is smartly going to try to wait for a spot to be a starting quarterback, as he obviously should be. And you don't typically have season-ending or major injuries to starting quarterbacks in the preseason. You almost always have them, unfortunately, within the first few weeks of the season. So especially with included in this report was the fact that the Patriots talked to him a couple months ago and didn't show a lot of interest. They are clearly the team that has the biggest need at quarterback right now. Sorry, Wilds. And so if they're not going to sign him, then he's going to have to wait for an injury, which means he's going to have to wait past week 1, Brian.
You know, I think his week 1 status is basically going to be a backup. I think Cam will realize that, of course, the market has cooled. And in order for him to build that confidence in himself, that he's coming off the injury healthy enough for the teams to accept him as a backup quarterback and a guy that can run their system if they need to, he's going to have to get into camp. And just like you mentioned, it's hard to say that your starting quarterback won't be ready for week 1. And so as he's in camp and as he builds that confidence over the weeks, if he gets to week 5 or 6 and has to play for 4 or 5 weeks like Teddy Bridgewater did this past year, then he has that ability. He has already built up that equity with the team. So to me, it makes sense for him to go in as a backup for week 1 at least if he can't be a starter.
Jenna, I went with Photoshop worthy here because I think that Cam is basically available to all the teams, and I could see some people in the graphic design department be like, hey, just so we have it ready, why don't you mock up a Photoshop of Cam in a whatever jersey? And Nick, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, that sometimes the headline is not in the headline. League sources believe Newton and the Patriots talked early during his free agency, but nothing materialized. That wasn't the headline of the story, and that hasn't been reported to my knowledge because I've read every single Cam Newton Patriots piece of literature that has come out for the last 3 months, and that just popped up. So the fact that there's a little spark there, Jenna, like your favorite movie, Castaway, a little spark there that might turn into something.
I know I haven't been watching Castaway this week. It's on my must-see this week. Moving on, Miami Dolphins rookie Tua Tagovailoa is reportedly expected to beat out veteran Ryan Fitzpatrick as the team's week 1 starter. I believe the words foregone conclusion are what we are looking for here. Nick, the Dolphins choosing to start Tua week 1 would be blank.
The obvious choice. If he's healthy, he plays. He's a blue-chip prospect who had one of the greatest pre-injury college careers statistically we've ever seen. And the guy in front of him is most famous for his facial hair and his alma mater before we get to his ability on the football field, and averages a pick a game for his career. Obviously, you're going to go with Tua. And for Fitzpatrick, I think it would be great if the last game he ever started in the NFL was week 17 against the Patriots, stealing that bye from them and opening up the door to the Chiefs starting their soon-to-be dynasty. It would be a wonderful football legacy for Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I don't want it to be marred by him starting a couple games for the Dolphins this year, Brian.
You know, it reminded me of Herm Edwards' quote, "You play to win the game." And that's what every coach is thinking about. That's what certainly what Brian Flores is thinking about. If Tua is healthy and you can protect him, of course, you put your best player on the field. I watched that Dolphins team, and just like you mentioned, they played all season long, hard on the line every single game. You mentioned that last game against the Patriots. Sorry about that, Kevin, but that Dolphins team wants to win right now. Brian Flores wants to win now. And Kevin, if you don't have Tua in there starting, I'm not sure that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the answer.
Well, if you play to win the game, I don't know if Tua is the answer either. I wrote, I see ghosts after the famous Sam Darnold versus the Patriots quote, because if you start Tua, Belichick is 12-0 against rookie quarterbacks. So you can start him week 1 at September 13th, and if you want to play to win the game, maybe he goes 12-1, maybe Tua breaks the trend, but I would expect 13-0 come September 13th, Jenna.
All right, moving on to the aforementioned Patriots. So they've got Jarrett Stidham penciled in as their week 1 starter, but Dan Graziano brought up an interesting point saying, quote, if Stidham doesn't work out, he'll cost the Patriots close to nothing. I would add maybe just an I told you so from Nick, but I'm sure he'd be subtle about it because that's how he works. Nick, the Patriots' commitment to Stidham is blank.
All right, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to talk about something I know very, very little about, and I don't like to do that. But the Patriots' commitment to Stidham is Tinder-ish. Now, listen, I've been with my wife since W was president, so our relationship predates the apps. But we have a lot of young bachelors that work on this television show. And as they